Peace. Peace, everybody. Peace and love. Salute. Salute to the good family. Hope everybody is well as I'm checking my stuff, making sure I'm okay. Let me check this really quickly. Give me 1 second. I think I'm good. Um, Salute to the good people. I hope everybody is doing well. Um, Looks like I'm on. Let me know if you guys could hear me okay. Am I audible to you? You know, I always got to check. Because if I don't, I will make the same mistake that I did some weeks back where I'm just talking and talking and talking and on mute. Or something, technical happens that, you know, I'm unaware of. Let me know if you can hear me. Put some nines in the chat if you guys could hear me. Salute to everyone. Oh, I see. Yeah, we got some people up in here making your way in. Okay, I see some nines. All right. So let's do this the right way, how I like to do things, and salute the good people. All right. In the building, first up, first in, 10 toes. Okay, is the brother Snoopy Mac in the building. He says, Miss Queen Sugar Free. Queen Sugar. Facts, King Snoopy. Always lovely to see you. Thank you so much for pulling up on me. I appreciate it. Who we got next? Oh my goodness, not the king and the coach himself in the building. Salute to my comrade, the coach Hudson in the building. He says, salute to the queen of boxing media, SugarFreeMars, my comrade. You dig? I always like blush and get a little bit flustered when I hear you say that, queen of boxing media. That is quite the title. But I appreciate your support and the encouragement, at least for me to aspire to that, right? I appreciate you, King. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining. Oh my goodness, my twin. Our birthdays are this week, King. Yes, indeed. We got the B-days coming up, me and my twin. We are a day apart. Salute. Oh, that's not my twin. That is Patrice. I don't know why I keep doing that. This is my twin. Hold on. Me and my twin, Daryl. It's the orange, yo. I'm so used to you being the only orange name that pops up that I'm like confusing you and Patrice nonstop. My bad, beautiful king. Salute to the king, Daryl. My twin, our birthdays are coming up this week. We are a day apart. Happy early birthday. I'm just saying, I'm just putting that out in the ethers for you, twin. Okay. He says, salute to the beautiful queen, aka my twin, SugarFreeMars. Facts, and salute to the rest of the kings and the queens in the chat. And hold up. Gotta circle it back and show love to the King Patrice. 10 toes on deck with the energy and the King vibes. Okay. Salute to the King Patrice. All right. He says, let the truth out today as always. Salute to the chat. You already know we 10 toes. 10 toes and nothing less, King Patrice. Thank you so much for pulling up. I really do appreciate you very much. Okay. Salute to the king, Rodney James in the building. He says, salute to the queen, SugarFreeMars, and the chat. Big salute and big love to you, King Rodney, as always. Thank you so much for rolling through. I appreciate you and your presence and your support. My beautiful mama love, Jaquila Fields is in the building. Grand evening. Warrior Queen is what she says. She says, his love is huge hugs to my, or I guess you meant here. Here's love and huge hugs to my baby girl, and peace to the chat. Yes, beautiful, beautiful Queen Jaquila. Lovely to see you. Thank you so much for bringing that good, wonderful, bright, radiant energy that you always do. Okay, that's my mama love, Jaquila. Oh my goodness, we got the King Freedom on deck. Peace and love, peace and infinite blessings to you, King Freedom. It's always wonderful to see you. Here for salute to the king here for boxing. He says, I ain't late today. Okay, I ain't late today. I feel you here for boxing. Wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for scheduling me in. Okay, I know life be lifing. All right, and I appreciate everybody in the building today. And thank you for sure with all the wonderful words of support that you have been giving me. I appreciate you, King, here for boxing. Appreciate you, tough. All right. Who else do we have in here? Squabbles 99, Squabble 78. Oh, he got his nines on deck. Salute to you. Thank you so much for joining. All right, as we got other people making their way in. Salute to the King Ty. He says, all hail to the Queen. Salute. Big love, infinite energy to the King Ty. On deck today. I appreciate you. Salute to, who is this? MuchTube University Music. Yeah. Salute to you, King. Nice to see you. I appreciate you. Appreciate you very much. Thank you so much for joining. Oh my goodness, my beautiful sis. My beautiful one is in the building. My sister, Cameron Fields, 10 toes on deck with her purple hearts. As always, thank you, beautiful sis, for joining. I appreciate you. Oh my goodness, we got the family, my big bro, the Druth, 10 toes. Yes, always excited to see my big bro in the building. Thank you so much for swinging by, King. Definitely appreciate you making time to come check on your girl. All right, salute to the King. Hustlers home in the building with his salutes on deck. Major love to you. Oh my goodness, the intelligent one. The intelligent one is in the building. Salute to the King, intelligent savage. Big, big love to you. Hold up. Hold up. We got to pause when the King, Stephen X, comes through the building. Okay? Salute to the King, Stephen. You already know what time it is, King. Nothing else needs to be said. You already know the agreement between us. Okay? Salute to you, King Stephen. Major love, as always, to see you. Always wonderful to see you join in for some wonderful discussions. Oh, Hustlers Home says hello to the Queen, SugarFreeMars. I like that, King. I appreciate you. You know, we're not stepping with nothing sweet, okay? Nothing sweet. Nothing's ever sweet over here. All right? Now, salute to the great Mike in the building. Big love to great Mike. Infinite love, infinite energy, and blessings to the great Mike. Always wonderful to see you as well, King. One of my gunners. Okay, I gotta salute the great Mike with all the respect that I can. You know what I'm saying? Because he is one of my original gunners. So big love, much appreciation to the King, the great Mike, as I call him. Okay, we don't just call him Michael or Mike. He is the great Mike when he is on this side. All right. Salute to KLG. Big salute and big blessings to you as well. Thank you so much for joining. Oh my goodness, not the sensei. Oh my goodness, the sensei, the King and the sensei himself, the wise one, the great elder. Okay, there is none other. Salute to the King Stormy. 10 toes on deck in the building. Wonderful to see you, King. Thank you so much for swinging through. I really appreciate it. I feel wonderful seeing the family in the building. I get very excited when I see my people 10 toes on deck. Now, I wasn't really sure. Hold on, let me take a sip of my water. You guys, I'm not even going to cap, okay? I was not sure how I was going to approach today's discussion throughout the week. I didn't know what I was going to discuss if I'm going to keep it a buck with the family. Usually I like throughout the week, I like to set like a guideline or a parameter and just to outline little things that I pick up along the way, that I find interesting that I would want to talk about. So I kind of like either write it down literally or I make a mental note like, oh, I keep that like in my brain computer. Oh, this would be cool to talk about. Maybe I'll divulge, a little bit of this at a time. And then that's how I build the theme from week to week of what it is that I want to talk about. But real talk this week, I have not been interested per se in the dynamics of boxing, so much to the effect that I found it, necessary to redress all the things that we had already spoken about previously. Long story short, that is to say that I found nothing that I really wanted to discuss that we haven't already touched on last week and, of course, in the previous week. Nothing really has changed. I think that things are still fermenting. So that, it opened up a new palette for me. And, I like to do the series Black No Sugar. And as my good family knows, I am very heavily, hold on, I'm chewing gum. That's kind of impolite. Hold on, let me take this out. I'm like chewing gum and like talking. Okay, let me get this out of the way so my people can hear me coherently. You guys know that I'm very much invested in Black culture, Black roots. That's why I created the program for me to tap into, these types of modalities that we are surrounded by on a cultural level, on an ideological level, um, and every other way possible. So I thought it would be cool to kind of maybe do a live, using this series. Usually I'm live talking about boxing, um, but I don't feel like I really get to burn as much as I want to, um, on these particular topics, or at least maybe perhaps I should rephrase that and say I wanted to engage with the family, directly surrounding, some cultural concepts and topics that speak to us directly. You know what I mean? Like I know I make them usually into separate videos and stuff like that, but I thought it would be an absolutely wonderful build for us to open up these things live in a live discussion, right? So we can kind of gauge each other's thoughts, live and in action in real time. So uh, I wanted to touch on the aspect and the idea, or just the fact of what I find to be an imperative from my observation, and of course in my personal life, not even as an observer, but just as a citizen of this world, right? um, about Black men, because I do not feel um, that there are enough spaces that put these types of dialogues at the forefront as much as we should be. Of course, there are myriad, platforms and avenues that we can go to for these types of things. If you guys are avid researchers and readers like me, or you surround your people with the likeness of yourself who have also, the fascination and the deep passion for the study of our people and our history and our culture, you can tap into all sorts of things, in circles, whether they be online or otherwise, to divulge these types of concepts. But I should say rather that there is never enough. There is never enough for our people to create. I think there is always room, to have and to set in motion the types of discussions that centralize our needs, our worldview, and our core principles, issues, and whatever else that you want to deem them to be. Okay? We could never have enough of that. We are a culture of people, whether we are talking about the American cultural system or we want to enlarge in it, as I tend to do, to the Pan-African perspective or the larger diaspora, because we are all connected via a shared and common cultural history, right? And so our context is very, very large, even though we can kind of view ourselves and I guess maybe a vacuum in this American context, but our experience is very, very much quite, not only held in our hands as a people. And I like to present these issues, for us to speak on a worldwide level. But of course, I am talking to my people here that have our shared experiences here. But I say that to say that our shared experience, of course, can be felt, throughout the diaspora, throughout the range of people who share, similar aspects of our history. So I say all that to say that, instead of sports, I was really focused on the culture dynamics that surround our concepts of ourselves and each other. And it led me to tap into some questions and some analysis on Black men. Okay. There isn't a time in my life where I'm not thinking about you beautiful brothers. Okay. That is the honest truth. I'm always thinking about the brothers. I tend to have a very protective stance when it comes to Black men. And that's kind of what I wanted to get into today, and share with you all some of my personal logic and personal thoughts that I have about Black men, and just put that in context to the dynamics of him personally and historically, and also to tap into Black women's engagement historically, or what has been set up as a cultural system via our history, how Black women perceive that, and maybe the modalities that have been put in place that have hindered, um, I would say, levels of communication between us, not only as men and women. Of course, that is a principal factor as well, but just the dynamic of how men communicate with each other, uh, with the world view, with the body politic, and maybe perhaps we could even look into some solutions that could help us further along our progress and development as a people. But I do not think that that can be done without putting some serious care and dedication to the value, the incalculable value that Black men particularly have and hold. I oftentimes find that you guys are left out of the conversation. That is very problematic to me. And those problematic elements are reverberating in cultural patterns, in behavioral patterns of our men and young boys. And I wanted to discuss some of those, you know, those dynamics with the good family. You know what I mean? Um, Hold on, let me see who we got in the building. I see some people are coming in. Oh, you guys are just saluting each other. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Oh my goodness, my beautiful king. Hey, beautiful King BF. Nice to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm always excited to see you, King. Thank you so much. I appreciate you making the time to come through. Salute to the King Tide, also in the building. Blessings to you. I see you. Lovely to see you. Okay. So let's get into this. Pretty deep conversation, but I feel like I have a platform of conscious brothers and sisters um, who look into these things in your own lives and who ask these types of questions on your own terms and are engaging with these different levels of reality that we are dealing with on a day to day. And that's why I gravitate to many of you, because many of you hold and share the same views that I do and are interested in this level of our politics. Because I said before, I think that may have been on last week's live, there's nothing wrong with our taking a political stance. And I'm talking political, not as far or in terms of party, you know what I'm saying, or governmental acquiescence. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about our political views, meaning our rights, our fundamental rights and needs as people. Okay? Everything that we do as Black people, as human beings on this planet is political. It's a political act. Everything. Our education, who we have sex with, who we marry, our friends, our circle of friends, everything that you do is political. And so that I encourage our brothers and sisters wherever we are, to assume a body politic that encourages our uprightness, that encourages our empowerment, but also our bravery to uncover the things that are historically or have historically brought us a significant level of pain, because it is only through that we can really uncover and discover what it takes to heal properly. So I invite us to have that conversation bravely today and openly today, right? So I let's see how I want to start this. I hold and maintain. I'll just say this. I hold and maintain that the Black man's role, and I'm talking to every single brother in here, every single brother in here. I do not care about your age or your creed, none of that. I am talking to you as my brother, okay? I hold and maintain that your role, beautiful brother, is an absolute imperative to life. I don't know if anybody has told you that today or yesterday or yesteryear. I'm telling you that right now. Your role and who you are is an imperative to life. I said life. You heard me correctly. I'm really trying to keep it together today, you guys, because I'm very fierce when it comes to my brothers. I don't play with y'all. Do you hear me? I do not play with my brothers. I don't do it because I know where you have been. I know what you are carrying, and I know where you want to go. I'm very fiercely protective about you. Fiercely. And we do not put enough respect on your names, societally or culturally. And you do not put enough respect on your own names. We got to begin to deal with this. Okay? Every brother in here, I'm talking to you. You are an imperative to life. An absolute necessity to life. You have always been. And I'm not saying this to paint a pretty picture so that we could stare and marvel at like you are some specimen or some object. I'm not saying this to marvel at you for 3 seconds only to put you down 5 minutes later and forget about you. I'm not saying this to mystify or delude your sense of, reality or to coddle and corset your ego. I'm not telling you that for that purpose. I'm telling you this because this is reality. This is our reality. The acknowledgement of your presence and its necessity to the function and basis and foundation of Black life itself. You need to understand that. I swear to God, I didn't intend on getting worked up like this, y'all. Y'all know what happens to me when sometimes you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I get, you know what I'm saying? I swear to God, I got the incense burning. I'm calm, you know what I'm saying? I had my little tea. I was chilling. But I got to speak how it's coming out. You need to know and understand that. Because if you do not, you will not be able to reclaim your place. I'm not telling this, to soothe your ego. This is not fluff. This is not a feel-good prescription placebo. This is reality. I'm talking about life and the sustenance of life and your role in that. You must know what it is and you must deem it for yourself because that is your masculine purpose. We out here fucked up and misguided and we have no direction because you forgot. Our brothers have forgotten who they are. And us Black women have allowed you to forget. And sometimes we even encouraged your amnesia because we have been insecure about, being mystified by concepts of power and masculine and feminine by people not of our culture. We have adapted a foreign culture. We got to stop the games. The only way we're going to get through this, you guys, culturally, I'm talking about our progress, our longevity, our sustenance and prosperity, is when a Black man understands his leadership and his commitment to the guidance of himself and his people. This is not a means to mystify you. This is to charge you with an assignment to stand 10 toes. In something worthwhile, not in bragging and boasting in ostentation. Pointless ostentation. We got a purpose to serve, Black man. You are a part of that purpose. I don't want you on the sidelines of nothing. You need to lead. And I'm looking and depending on your direction. There's a togetherness that we are missing. We got to change that. We have to talk about that. I'm sick of the distractions, the cultural distractions. Enough is enough. We got some serious business that we are dealing with as a people, collectively. And they need our engagement and our attention. Black man, you are an imperative to life. The life and survival and foundation of our collective divine right to exist as Black people. I have been marinating upon and ruminating upon my brothers. I really have been. Like I said, there's never a time where I'm not, because I'm looking at you. I'm engaging with you. I'm seeing you walk into a room, walk out of a room. And I'm seeing a history around you. And I'm seeing patterns that need to be broken, habits that have become normalized, that are not upholding us. And I'm looking at the sisters and their complicit behavior. And the destruction of their behavioral patterns that are keeping themselves down, that are misinforming and miseducating our children. I'm looking at us in tandem, male and female. And I'm saying, wait, there is an imbalance here. How do we get this on track? How do we begin to open up the dialogue so that we can discuss these things, reshape some things, discard some things, perhaps rebuild, reconnect spiritually on so many of the things and principles that we have lost over the centuries? You are an imperative to life, Black man. And I'm talking, like I said, specifically to my Black man. That's not saying that I am ignoring or bypassing the sisters, but we have so much dialogue surrounding the sisters and our worth that our men fall to the shadows. We cannot have that happen. So I'm focusing my blade. I am pointing the blade towards the brothers. The arrow, the compass, I should say, towards the brothers. Because we have not been looking at them. We only look at them when it's time to blame them, when we want to find a source of an issue. That is when we shift our eyes to the brothers. But we are not looking at the modalities and the constructs that have set up and that perpetuate his condition in our community. I don't want y'all in the background anymore. I don't want you, running around here with no identity, with a severed, relationship, a fractured relationship with your past and your history and your childhood and your upbringing and all of the misguided information you've gotten thus far. You guys have been operating, on a miracle damn near. How some of you brothers out here functioning. It's amazing to me how many of you have survived under the conditions that you have been put under. And I'm telling you now that I'm not overlooking that. I refuse to overlook your experience because, it's embarrassing, or he's been to jail, or he sold drugs, or maybe he spent some time in the military and, came back not right, or maybe he got laid off from his job, or, I'm tired of pushing these things, as, means to handicap you. Whatever it is that you have been through. Black men need to know that they are not alone. That there are people. There are women who are looking to support you. There are brothers, whether they be fathers, uncles, friends, whatever, who are looking to support you. Everybody out here with with this notion that Black men don't need help. Black men don't need guidance. Black men don't need, reparation. Because you are strong. Because you are the ultimate masculinity on the planet. That doesn't mean that you don't need guidance too. And it does not make you weak for seeking it or for analyzing the fact that you want assistance in your life, that you want partnership in your life, that you want valuable connections in your life. I'm not just talking about romantic. I'm talking about within life. You deserve that. You deserve that. We don't have enough time spent on these types of conversations. So it was an imperative for me to go into that in a live, directly addressing the beautiful brothers that I love so dearly and respect so much. I really do. The day-to-day maze that we run through, societally, the constructs of that societal system insists that we do not look at you, Black man. It insists upon the fact that we don't see you. What are we going to do about that? How do we counteract the structure that depends on us not seeing you? If we are not thinking logically and clearly, You will forever be in the shadows, which means we will be forever in a perpetual state of degradation as a people. So that it has been made an imperative to keep the Black masculinity completely at a disadvantage, completely isolated and disassociated from his community, from his woman, so that he will never have active participation in the reclamation of himself and of his family unit. That's what the structure insists upon. That's what's inherent in this particular system that we live in. And it's a global system operating vehemently against Black people, wherever we are on the planet. The system insists upon us not seeing you, Black man, that we don't see each other, so that you don't see me. You see, a feminine principle to be exploited or to be enjoyed sexually, but you don't see me. There's a system that supports that mentality that we are holding of each other. We have to discuss this with maturity and with intelligence and with courage. We have a system in which you are specifically, systematically, and systemically left out of focus. We got to keep it a buck about that, because that means to focus on the Black man. In other words, it's to focus on the conversation of power. And that is something that this system and the upholders of this racist system, that means that they would have to contend with your power unabridged. And that's something that they don't want to do. And so all types of modalities and forms of being and ideologies are set in place and have been historically for thousands of years. I'm not even talking about slavery, chattel slavery. I'm talking beyond that. I'm talking back to your Roman empires, thousands of years since the dawning of the Western ideologies and views of their epistemology, have been set in place to constrain you and bind you to that notion and that system. And that is what you are still to this day tied to, a long history of that mentality to disenfranchise you from your own power and your own place. Because they know that you are an integral part of the maintenance and sustenance of Black life itself. They know that. You don't, because you have been made to forget. So that these conversations are necessary to ignite ancestral memory within you, spiritual memory within you. I'm not talking, hoodoo magic or, some whatever, even though that is very real. I'm talking reality. There have been generations upon countless generations of assault on what we can call or deem the Black structure. Okay? Generations upon generations, just looking within the American context in general, generations upon generations of assault spanning thousands of years. But if we're going to keep it in context to to our past 500 years or so, we can do that as well, right? Now, I know that this notion is tossed out and made to seem as if it were folly. Oh, it's farcical that, Black people, we are in a post racial time. We are in modern times. I know that the notion has been tossed about like, oh, you guys are just talking, trumping up things when you say that, right? When we place it in the context of Black people, that is, right? But when we place these types of context for other people, it's no big deal. But Black people are supposed to at all times play oblivious to their oppression and to the parameters of their history and the traumas of that history, right? But we are overdue as far as the acceptance of the reality of our position. It's time for us to accept the reality of that position, because that is the only way we can proceed to the next level of our development. We have been instructed, we have been threatened and codified within the system of white delusion, aka, white supremacist delusion, right? To operate without the utilization of our full genetic, spiritual, mental capacity to claim the right to exist. That is what the system has stripped from us, and works constantly on a daily basis to ensure that we remain within the mind frame of accepting. That we have to be in a constant state of not being able to fully realize, fully actualize our God-given life. That's a heavy statement, but this is what we are dealing with, beautiful family. In every area of people activity, every area. I'm talking politics, economics, entertainment, education, law, labor, religion, sex, war. Every area of people activity. We have been inculcated with an ideology of inferiority. We have been inculcated with the epistemology of an oppressor. People who do not work in context to our prosperity. We've assumed their logic, their concepts, their world view. That means that we are, by association, acting out of our own best interest many of the times, whether it's known or unbeknownst to us, because it all operates consciously and subconsciously, these constructs. I know a lot of our people may not be readily willing to accept that, but this is the reality at hand. These are the things that we are operating with. I don't care how it's dressed up. You are being inculcated with all types of messages and perceptions that are not yours. And so there's a conscious level that has to be activated in order to wake up to this, in order to begin to start dealing with it. It does not happen overnight. It requires your lifetime to deal with. It requires your lifetime to correct your own habits. It requires your lifetime to deal with your own, maybe lack of courage, your own fears, your own complexes. It's not an overnight process. Dedicate your life to overcoming these things and undoing these things and ensuring that they are not passed on, at least as heavily as they were given to you, unbeknownst to your parents at the time that they were raising you. Because a lot of our parents have, oh my goodness, saturated us with all types of nonsense that we have to re-educate ourselves on as we hit adulthood, right? But in order to cope with all of these different facets, we have accepted all manners of distractions, behavioral practices, and ways of perceiving that have placed, I would say even more of a potent threat upon us via our acceptance of these distractions and foreign behavioral practices. It's imposed an even deeper threat to us and our progress collectively, more so than any of the outside contributors could do. on its own. It is our acceptance of those concepts that binds us to perpetual degradation, spiritually, mentally, culturally, and however you want to cut it. So that our very fundamental principle of how we see ourselves, not even in relating to the world, before we even walk out the door, we are inculcated with a view of ourselves that tells us we are not worthy, not valuable, unless we fit into a structure that is anti our natural expression. All right? Now, I ask, what's happening, Black man? That's the name of today's discussion. What's happening, Black man? Right? And I ask that because I am looking around at today's popular landscape and just, making an overview, let's say, of even, before, the current standard, even within the past several decades, if you want to say, right? But especially today, because of course we are in this particular time. I'm looking around at the landscape. It is thundering outside. I got the spirit Shango on deck, okay, with the lightning and the thunder out my window. I don't know if you guys heard that, but yes, I'm looking at the landscape and how we have supposedly, bypassed certain limitations. Oh no, we're beyond that. Oh no, there's no, notions of divisions anymore. We have, progressed, and it's a post-racial America, and that happened in the 60s, or that was Martin Luther King's time, or that was Harriet Tubman's time, or that was Bookman time. That was Toussaint Louverture's time, whoever's time. That happened long ago, in other words, right? That's a perspective that we are encouraged to have, that we have moved beyond that because of, this postmodernistic view that we are, swindled into believing and assuming for ourselves, right? Yet, we are relatively very much, if not more so, in the same precarious predicament socially and culturally as our forefathers. Right now, today, where have we progressed further beyond the progress that they have fought and died and bled for years ago? How far ahead or how far along have we come? Not very far at all. Maybe we have, some iPhones now. Maybe we could, start our car with the press of a button or something like that. But the systems have not changed. Water is still water, whether it is vaporized, liquefied, or solidified. It is still the product of the same element. Okay? That's how we have to begin to look at our reality, because they want to dress it up in a certain way. You understand what I'm saying, beautiful people? But that doesn't mean it is not the same old game. We have to be privy and cognizant of these things, because there are no people on this planet that are targeted and singled out and marginalized and disenfranchised the way our people are on a global level. We got to wake up to that. The collective conscious has to be surrounding that understanding. And we cannot be afraid of being educated on the reality of that. Because a lot of our people are afraid. Don't go talking that Black stuff. You hear, Sugar Free? Oh, there go Mars being pro-Black again. We can't get caught up in that nonsense and that trigonometry. Your cognizance is an imperative to your survival. Somebody asking you to not be conscious is asking you to not be alive. You better exercise your consciousness in every way that you can. Do not be dissuaded from your intelligence being activated. Go find out. Go research. Have dialogues that are not concerning, how somebody's ass looked today, or what, nigga gave you money or paid your rent, or whatever worthless, frivolous conversations our brothers and sisters be out here having. Did Beyonce perform at the goddamn Super Bowl? No more giving our attention to worthlessness, to symbols of progress. Those, Beyonce is a symbol, for example. She does not represent the totality of the needs or the development of our people. She is somebody who made it. God bless that woman and her family, right? She's out here doing what she got to do. But she is not serving the needs of our people. And she is not looking to. And so we have to stop fantasizing about the lives and the images put on display on our television sets and thinking, oh, well, Beyonce made it. That means, black people got to be in good shape now, right? Oh, Obama was president. We must be moving along. We must be climbing up the ladder. Stop falling in love with symbols. Fall in love with your hands in the soil. Fall in love with your black woman. Fall in love with your babies. Fall in love with the building of your own institution, with your own gods. Your own gods. Fall in love with your purpose and finding out what that purpose is. Fall in love with your phases. Because we all have them. Just like the moon. It has its phases and so do we. We have to be accepting of our stages of development. Fall in love with that, with your maturation, with your education. I ask what's happening, black man, because I am wondering how many of you want to continue to be repeatedly sung lullabies while you sleep. That's why I asked the black man what's happening. How many more lullabies do you want me to sing you? How many more lullabies do you want your distractions to sing to you to keep you asleep? Because while you are sleeping, our mental, cultural, spiritual demise is boiling over. Brothers, beautiful brothers, there is a you that is imperative to the landscape of our being, as I said. There is a you that I want to call forward. That is also why I'm asking, what's happening, black man? What's happening with you? I'm asking also as a wellness check. Because I know everything ain't all right. And I know you don't have it all together. And I know you put on a strong face. And I know sometimes you need a shoulder to cry on. And I know you got the world in your hands. And I know sometimes, there isn't anybody to hear you. And I also know that you are powerful. And I also know what you are capable of. That's what I know. What's happening in the world is very much a focal point when I ask what's happening, Black man, because I see you throughout the world. But what's happening, Black man, is also a very simple question as far as peering into or inquiring about just your day to day. Where you going? What you doing? You know what I mean? Did you eat? How you feeling? Our brothers need that too. They need that too. There is so much that we have been taught and instructed as a society to deny about you, and that you have been taught to deny about yourself, Black man. And I don't want that to be perpetuated any longer, so that the conversation needs to be around removing ourselves from our own subjugation. Because there is a construct that is definitely being enforced and at work and severe against us, 1000%. But there is even larger than that, a perpetuation upheld by our own hands. That is an even greater threat. That's what I want to talk about. That's what I feel we should be talking about. The self-perpetuated constraints. It's a difficult subject to talk about, ourselves as Black people, right? Because automatically people would assume, oh, well, here, Black people just complain. That has been inculcated into us, that we can't even talk about our symptoms, so that we have been silenced. We have been ordered and instructed to not say a goddamn thing. The perfect victim, ordered to be silenced by their aggressor. And we have taken that on. And we have imposed upon ourselves that we don't talk about these types of things. We get shy about these types of things. Trust me, I know. We tend to get shy about anything that we find to be too, centered in our Blackness or our, lived and collective experience. Oh, it's not that deep. People start running away. It's not that deep, y'all. People, our own. We don't need to get into that. That was the past. All types of excuses and justifications to not deal with the problems, to not inquire into the symptoms that we are showing and have been showing for generations. It's difficult to talk about, right? Where we are in context to the global dynamic, wherever we may be on the planet, because of the generational instructions that we have received from living within a global system that has imposed its supremacy upon us and therefore ensured our complex of inferiority. It has us within this global system hating ourselves, despising who we are. But we have to face this. We have got to be encouraged and emboldened by the importance of our reparation as a people. As a people. And we cannot do that with half of ourselves out the goddamn door. We have to be holistic in our approach, in our dealings with ourselves and each other. We cannot run from the fact and the reality of the war that we are in. That's step one, right? We got to acknowledge that. The war that we are in is a war that our parents have been in, is a war that our grandparents were in, and great grands, and back and back and back, as further back as you goddamn want to go. That in and of itself tells you that we have a lot of work to do in order to undo those types of binds. How many generations are we going to keep repeating the same things that we are saying today? The same things that our parents were saying and grandparents were saying. It has to stop somewhere. And we have to be the enforcers of the action that is going to ensure that we don't keep perpetuating the same, expressions of destruction against ourselves, or the same level of participation in the system that ensures that destruction of ourselves. The first stage and the step of any change, beautiful people, is acknowledgement and acceptance of your condition. I don't care what level of change you are talking about. It begins there, with acknowledgement and acceptance of the condition. Black people are dealing, real talk, with a psychosis. It is of clinical proportions, you guys. Psychosis. And that has to be understood if we are to begin the process of any type of healing and any type of real fundamental empowerment for our union as man and woman together on this earth. We cannot run from that. We cannot run from each other. And what we are dealing with, and definitely not what we have been through. That doesn't improve or solve anything. All right? It applies here. I know sometimes we think about it medically. You think about people going to therapy, or even, let's say, a doctor's appointment, right? What does a doctor do in order to prescribe a solution, or in order to, give you a proper diagnosis? Or, he has to do what? Evaluate. Evaluate. Same thing with us. We need to be able to evaluate and identify the symptoms so that we can trace our way to the cause, to the root, and subsequently find the answer or the cure to the issue. It's the same thing with us. We are not removed from that. We don't tend to think of ourselves as needing treatment or deserving of treatment. We just think, we just got to take it all on a goddamn head. Why? Because, y'all are strong. Black woman is strong. She don't feel no pain. That's what we've been told historically. He don't feel nothing. He can lift a boulder. He don't get tired. Watch him work to death, sun up till sundown. This is what we have been fed. And in these ways, we are still practicing these types of things subconsciously. Even in the smallest or most mundane of areas, these behavioral patterns are being exemplified. Black people, beautiful brothers and sisters, we have a duty to protect Black masculinity. I will say it again because you guys did not hear me wrong. We have a duty to protect Black masculinity. Now, I know that some people may get caught off guard by that word protect. Oh, well, you don't protect the male or masculine in need of protection. There's a conflict presented in our minds, right? Because of all the things that we have been miseducated upon as far as masculinity, and most certainly Black masculinity. right? I know the phrase is usually, phrase of protection or the outlook or the concept of protection is usually relegated to the female. Got to protect the female. Oh, the Black female as it pertains to us, right? She needs protecting. We often shift the rhetoric and the general perception of protection on the woman, which is definitely an imperative. I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not saying that we don't need the protection, right? But what I find to be grossly problematic within the culture that we have adopted, within the singling out of the woman as needing protection, is the absence that logic creates, the absence that it creates in the discourse, and hence in the mentality of the culture that is saying, that should also be viewing the men as being of value and, worth protecting. So that there's an outcasting of men in that logic that I find from my observation. There is something inherently saying, because we don't include the matter of them needing our protection, as far as when I say protection, I mean assuring their value, having them understand their value and their place as a man, the masculine principle, that needing value added to it, that value needing acknowledgement. The fact that we don't speak about that automatically associates them with valuelessness. And that's absolutely what we see rampant throughout our community. There needs, to not only be, they need, how do I want to say this? There is a need, or they not only need to be respected and seen as pillars and force of dominance and, force of power, a one-dimensional myopic view of the man. Oh, okay, well, he just, brute force, brute strength. That is not the only purpose a man serves. He needs to also be seen as deserving of our full protection as a community. He needs to be protected as well. He needs people to go to bat for him. He needs to know that his people support him in his endeavors, in his aims, in his mobility, in his development, from a boy to a man, and so forth and so on. It is virtually made obsolete, in other words, within popular discourse, that masculinity, that Black men need justice. Black men need spirituality. Black men need, mental, emotional, physical support and upliftment. It's obsolete within our culture. Why are we still perpetuating this logic? And why is there no importance on showing and expressing the value and the importance of their understanding of justice, spiritual balance, emotional, physical wellness? Why are we expressing the importance of their value on these levels? Why is there chiefly, emphasis on, things like their virility, for example, right? Or their physical brute strength? That is a historical association that we can trace back to slavery as well. He is only good for his athleticism, for example. So that he is absent of his mind, of his purpose, of his guidance, and all the other qualities that he brings as an intelligent human being to the society and to his family structure. That's one of the problems that we have. I say that this is in and of itself, an attempt made within the dominant structure to vaporize the image of the necessity of the Black masculine presence from our community. They want it vaporized. They want the image of the importance and necessity of Black masculinity to be eradicated from our minds and our principles of value and worth. That's what the system has shown us. And that's what many of us are foolishly practicing and perpetuating as far as the degrees in which we relate to each other and instruct each other. And it is not helping to build a sustainable reality for our men and our boys and how they relate to our women and our girls. Okay, and I posit that this is of central importance as far as Black women are concerned. Right, this level of thinking has a paramount place as far as the role of Black women and what we can do to begin to understand this so that we can stop adopting and looking to foreign artificial concepts that accept this disgusting idea of his inferiority, or adversely, this careless assumption that brothers can do it without support. Black women got to stop feeding into that shit. Because it is us that is telling him, he is only good if he does this. He is only, looking at him as a one-dimensional being, not dealing with the layers of his personality, the dynamics of his spirit. Black women are perpetuating and enforcing this as well. We are aiding and abetting in his practice of self-degradation. And a lot of times we are telling him that he should be degraded because he ain't worth nothing. We got to deal with that too. That's absolute folly. And our brothers need to know, that we won't ever get as far or as near, to their development, to the pinnacle of their development and their potential without a solid structure to uphold and value and support them. Black women play a crucial role as far as the support that can uphold and uplift our brothers. I'm not oblivious to that or blind to that. Many of our sisters, really need a deep re-education, okay? And trust me, I was not always privy to that. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in a very female-centric home, okay? And it so happened that my mom had very, I guess the word would be toxic, because she experienced varying degrees of it. You know what I'm saying? And so that her view of men, came to, harbor a lot of emotional resentment for men. And in her education, as far as her experience, she passed that on to her female children. Okay. And so that even though I can't say that I ever practiced the full extent of her scorn, I always, as I, of course, became of age and started to date, there was, I was a very affable person, naturally, very bubbly, believe it or not, very bubbly and accepting. That was a part of my nature. But that even with that natural side of me, I still had a weariness that was I was conditioned to believe or understand about men. And this is before I even knew what dealing with a man meant. This is before I even had any type of interpersonal relationships with men on that type of level. I already had a preconceived notion, in other words, of their illicitness, if you will. And this was passed on to me by a Black woman, which is my mother. She is the earth that I come from, right? As beautiful and as wonderful as she is, she has been guided by a lot of principles based on her own personal experiences and based on her own lack of education or lack of learning from her lessons, her making her own perpetual mistakes and blaming men for her problems instead of blaming herself for making repeated bad decisions and all types of things that were passed on by her grandmother, her auntie, and things like that were passed on to me. And I haven't even lived yet as a woman. And I am carrying. Women have to begin to deal with this reality because the perpetuation of the false information or the scorned experiences that we carry from our mothers and aunties and so forth are instructing us to not be open to learning who our men are. Whether we are relating to them on a romantic, sexual level or not, I'm talking about with men in general. We do not readily come out the door with an understanding of you, Black man, is what I am saying. That is a problem because what that does is have you deal with us on a basis of non-understanding, which means that there can be no level of growth. There can be no level of true intercourse. And the intercourse on the level of the joining of souls, the joining of reciprocity is the intercourse that I am talking about. Not just on a sexual level, but on a lifeline level. Okay? So that problems are already created before we even get to mature, before maturation is even had. We are misunderstood on the basis of how to relate to each other as men and women. And I posit that a lot of our misinformation, as far as the part of Black women are concerned, is passed down, those traumas. Don't trust men. They ain't no good. They ain't nothing but dogs. My beautiful sisters in the building, we have heard it all. Whether it was from our mothers or our girlfriends or whoever, the trauma is passed on. And to one level or another, we are subconsciously dealing with that. And then we have a culture that insists in illicit practices, illicit sexuality and displays of that nature and what have you. We have music that backs up that language and behavior. All types of things are against us that we just find to be mundane, day-to-day, normal, normalcies. And there are actually, modalities of destruction. But that we could break that down for hours, right? But I say that to say, the Black woman's role, as far as the reparation of our community and most definitely of our men, is absolutely paramount. Our role as sisters, as your wives, as mothers to be. Okay, we have a huge role. We play a huge component in this discourse, larger than many of us have been led, raised to believe. All right? We don't see how paramount our role is, Black women. We do not know. When we really get to the root of it. Because a lot of us feel like we only satisfy one dimension of a man, that we are only made to fulfill one aspect of him. And that is sexually. Right? Oh, well, if I just look good, I stimulate him there, then that means he is stimulated as a person. You try living your, a full lifetime on just sex alone and see how that works out for you. That's not the only way to satisfy or satiate any human being. Much more is needed. And a lot of our sisters are misguided. I strongly perceive that it is via the full participation and consciousness of Black women that the reparation of ourselves and our men can be had, because we determine and set in motion a standard. Why is that? Because we are the first and premier teachers on the planet. The first teacher of any child is their mother He learns before he is even out of her womb what she is feeling. He eats what she eats. He breathes what she breathes. All before he can, blink his eyes and realize that he has hands. He is a part of her. We are his first teacher. That role is, insurmountable as far as the level of importance that we play in his development and understanding. So that we have to ensure as Black women, that we are setting the proper standards for our male and female children when they come to the planet. It is via our instruction that the world operates. So that if we are showing our men, that they can just deal with us in any type of way, we shake our ass a little bit to get their attention, that'll be enough to hold their attention. But if we are not feeding our men the need to realize not only our worth, but their own, then we are failing as women. We are failing if we are not encouraging our brothers, if we are not learning from our mistakes, if we are not willing to be mature, to acknowledge those mistakes, and brave enough to correct them, then we are failing as Black women. And we got to be honest about that. There's nothing wrong with that. You got to keep it a buck. Okay, well, I had the wrong, conception about this or that particular thing. Or my mom taught me this and I had been practicing this all the way up into my 30s or my 40s. How about I try to redirect that energy? Understand what feminine power is to me. How to best submit to my man, which just means to agree with him. How can we join forces? How can we develop some aims together? How can I speak power over this? How can I best, express my needs, my feminine needs? And how can they best work in accordance with his masculine needs? Because really the masculine and the feminine is a divine energy in itself. It's like an element, just like water and fire and earth. Masculine and feminine is its own principle. And we are vastly out of touch with that holistically. Because, like I said earlier, we have accepted concepts and notions not our own. We got to begin to deal with that and question those things that we have assumed as normal practices and behaviors. What works for other people is not ours. Doesn't mean it's going to work for us. And we cannot, as Black people, be ashamed of our indigenous practices and principles and getting to know those things and seeing how, they can work for you, or seeing how you can construct and develop your own modalities for yourself and your family. But we have to begin to, inquire. Because if it's not working, it's not working. No matter how much you convince yourself, the product and the effect of that will show. And the dematerialization of, all levels of prosperity in your life. I want us to be real about that as Black people. I'd be absolutely remiss to not say that I've observed also on the notion of Black women. I'd be remiss to not say that I observed, this level of hyperbolic, level of self-inflated concept of importance or self-importance that our sisters have been led to believe that we have over that of the Black man. There is the superimposition that many of the sisters have via things like, no disrespect to any sister who may have, come across this type of, found an interest in feminism, but via concepts and constructs like that, that have, misdirected a lot of our sisters over the decades, so that there has been, a hardening of a shell that insists upon a self-inflated idea of the importance of the Black woman over that of the Black man, right? Among many women within the westernized world, that's in America and abroad, right? All of the women who have been usurped by this ideology, right? We have learned, adapted, and passed on concepts of, and an overemphasis on, our self-importance of women above men. There is a lot of that going around too. And we can't pretend that that doesn't exist. And that is contributing to a lot of the problems as far as our disconnection with the brothers. All right. Now that, we have been, dealing with this level of, these types of concepts, foreign concepts for some time, I guess to some degree, we have built a level of esteem on it. And I'm not talking about that, there being an issue simply, on the idea of building a healthy and balanced level of esteem as a woman, as your place in it. That's not what I'm talking about. You should know your place, and you should absolutely 1000% have a healthy, balanced level of esteem for yourself. Okay. But that there has been both an imposed and self-perpetuated image on Black women that has dictated to us that our man is valueless. So that we want to assume all the value in order to suck the value from him. Pause. Or not pause, but to remove. So our value is predicated on his valuelessness, in other words. You feel me? Oh, I am valuable. That means you ain't nothing, because I am valuable. I am the staple and the poster child of value, which in turns make you valueless as a whole. You are valueless, Black man, is what many of our sisters have taken the mentality of over the decades. Okay. And there are contingencies, based in a lot of trivial, superficial, and artificial concepts based in Western ideology. That's where the root of that comes from, right? Things like, oh, well, I'm making this money. I'm an independent, I don't need no man. You know what I'm saying? Oh, how much money do you make? You are only, a value if you make X amount of dollars. You are not even a human being worthy of me talking to. Right? Oh, what car are you driving? Oh, you're not a man if you don't fit such and such and such picture, and so forth and so on. So that, in other words, much of how many Black women have adopted their view of Black men, it's almost totally developed via the lens of the people and the system we are oppressed by, which is that of the Western ideology. Got to be real about that, right? What we watch, in other words, how we digest information, what we learn at an early age from our, television screens, our movies, our elders, like I pointed the example of earlier, our elders having fully participated in and exemplified these types of things to their children. We haven't put enough time into questioning the predominant systems and patterns that we've made, a permanent part of our behavior, and hence we have normalized these behaviors. We got to ask the questions, but the dialogue and the parameters have to be set so that some truth can be had, so that some honesty can be had for us, particularly, and by us, for the purpose that can serve us and our particular needs, because our situations are very particular to us. There is no universal code as it pertains to goddamn Black people that we could just, walk around thinking that, we could assume, the history and the pretenses of other people. Our history and our dealings and our world politic is unique to us. And we have to deal with it on a unique basis. All right. Now I'm going to make a generalization also and say, I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to go and chat with my people because I see y'all talking. Okay. But I just wanted to hit this point before I take a pause. I'm going to make a generalization and say, via my observation on this particular discourse, as I have developed my consciousness as best I can, and it's a work in progress every day. But I have, begun to deeply, via my analysis, I've begun to deeply take heart and inquire about these dynamics because like I said, I am fiercely passionate about this, type of discussion and history that we share. I find on the part of Black women, many have not realized how these structures operate in our, daily perceptions of self and our relationships with the brothers. Many of us don't understand how we are operating, within these constructs and how these constructs dictate our transactions with the brothers, our perceptions of the brothers, our handlings and dealings with the brothers. A lot of us are oblivious to that. I know I certainly was, 1000%. You know what I mean? And I am still engaging with the reality of my miseducation, my misinformation, which is why I do the work. I do the studying. I do the reading. I do the talking. You know what I mean? Because I am serious about the development of myself as a woman, and I'm serious, about the passing on of proper information to my family, to my loved ones, so that these patterns can be, diluted until they exist no more. That is the goal. That's the aim, right? But a lot of sisters are, absolutely oblivious to the ways in which these things operate in our day-to-day lives and transactions with the brothers, right? When we are talking about male and female dynamic and the understandings between us or misunderstandings, right? And how our being misinformed as Black women via the traditions that have been passed on to us or inculcated into us via our institutionalization leads to the continual redundance of relegating our men, to being outcasts of our home, outcasts of the community, constant, being relegated to degrading positions in society, right? Wrongly chastised. In other words, scapegoated. These are the positions that Black men are assuming, positions of degradation, chastisement, being scapegoated. This is happening to them in all areas of exchange and transaction in our lives. And a lot of that is happening and being perpetuated because our lack of understanding of what it is that we are dealing with culturally, politically, and systemically. Black women got to get hit, in other words. These are things that we just have to know, that we have to get to know. It is not enough simply being cute and getting your nails painted and your hair did. It is not enough to sit up there with your, your MAC lip gloss on and like, yes, boo, hot girl summer, yes, it is giving. No, that is not our work. You know what I'm saying? So that the same one-dimensional perspective that we impose on our men is the same one that we impose on ourselves. We place ourselves within these one-dimensional boxes and perceptions that we are only to fulfill a singular purpose, which is to, look good. You know what I'm saying? Or to amass, I don't know, whatever level of stature. Or to assume, this insidious, disgusting, logic of independence. A lot of Black women are obsessed with this. Obsessed. And we cannot hold that as a popularized standard. That is not my standard as a Black woman. I want to be independent from a motherfucking thing. I want to be 10 toes with my king. I want to be 1,000 toes with my child. 1,000 toes with my home. Forget 10 toes, 1,000 toes. I want to work in tandem with my people. That's what I want to do. And I want to find the ways as a Black woman how to best allow for the space to create that. Right? Because there is 50% of that power in my hands as a woman that I can control uniquely, that I uniquely control and contribute to, that my imprint is absolutely paramount to the development of because of my Black femininity. It is my imprint, and I want to figure out how to best provide that, how to best do my part. I think if the sisters, get on that type of time, for their own personal lives, of course, it's going to be different for every sister. You know what I'm saying? We all have our own needs and stuff like that. But what I'm calling for the beautiful sisters to do is to identify that. Identify that for yourself and the ways in which that it works for us, because that will automatically bleed into and impact and influence, the work and the direction and the mentality of our brothers. Okay? That's the reality. That's the absolute reality. Let's see. I think women, amongst each other, whether we are peers or within our own family dynamics, we feed on, like I said, the passed down narratives. A lot of that is so tumultuous and so, heavy with burden and debris that is no longer needed, that no longer serves us, that we need to begin to interrogate that. We need to do a deep level of reconnaissance, complete reconnaissance, and constant level of reconnaissance in order to figure out these things, in order to figure out what works and doesn't work, right? We cannot pass down narratives that degrade the purpose and the function of Black masculinity. And like I said, from my own personal experience, whether my mother was conscious of what she was doing or not, whether she thought I was too young to understand or not, that is what I had no talks about my mom about what it meant to love a man. I never had to talk about my mom what it was to function in his life. I was never taught how he should function in mine, because I never seen a man function in my mother's life. Real talk. You know what I'm saying? Not to any level of depth and capacity, possibly before I was born. She may have had that level of engagement, but certainly when I came of consciousness, she was single. And so that when I was, raised, I did not see how masculine and feminine principle operate together or ought to operate together. Right? We gotta be honest about that as Black women. The representations that we've had and our misinformation or lack of information at all on how to engage with the brothers. The brothers have to be understood. There is no way that we can bypass them. You know what I mean? We have to deal with them, okay, on whatever level. But they're there. There's just something that we can circumvent. The brothers are, they exist, and they ought to, have some understanding to the table when they walk in the room. And the same thing with us. They need to understand us. Trust me, loads of the misinformation that the brothers have about us. But a lot of that is due to us not talking to each other, right? Because a lot of it was encouraged that we do not. We were separated from our, connections. Babies snatched out of our hands, men ripped out of homes and lynched and terrorized, whole communities for generations upon generations broken up and dispersed. Okay, countless atrocities, and we are still, trying to deal with what it was the fuck that we went through. So we haven't even gotten past that, let alone getting to the thick of it, as far as how we want to engage with each other moving forward. That's why these levels of discourse, are paramount and absolutely imperative to our building and hence our eventual healing that I hope that we get into. But it is within the one-to-one interactions that that healing can begin on a mass and collective level. It begins with the one-on-one interactions. Okay? And that's why I wanted to, really in and focus in on the dynamics, the personal one-on-one dynamics, with each other in our day-to-day lives, whether it is male to female, whether it is how the brothers are viewing themselves personally, the sisters are viewing themselves personally, our concepts and notions of self, to how we deal with our children, to how we deal, with friends or, whatever. We got to begin there, in other words, right? That's where it begins. That there is an epidemic among the westernized Black world and the community or the diaspora that is, perpetuating this concept and notion of the inferiority of ourselves. But of course, like I said, I'm specifying it around the brothers today, right? That he is not suitable, that he is not valuable unless he has a particular, amount of money or a particular showing or expression of, material gains. All of these things we perpetuate and place upon these Black men, and it's not right. It's not right. It's a maze that they can never get out of, no matter how much they amass. That's why you see brothers out here making all types of money and they are not fulfilled. They are not satisfied. They are not emotionally intelligent. They are not emotionally available. Because it isn't about the material things or the showing of things. It's about the spiritual development, and that is what is lacking on a fundamental level for many of our people, right? And that's wherever we are, on the planet, the history of Black people under the system of oppression, right? Of, imperialism, colonization, and the results of that, all the reverberations of white supremacy and the structures globally of white supremacy that our people have faced in America, in Europe, in Brazil, in Haiti, in Jamaica, wherever it is that we share this cultural history, that it exists. And we've got to deal with that wherever we are. We got to begin to reconstruct as Black women our own principles. Okay? Because I'm talking about Black men, but I can't speak about Black men, but I'll talk about the sisters because we are together. We are united. Okay? I can't talk about just half. I got to talk about the whole. His other half is me. Do you understand? I am his other half. I can't sit around pointing a finger at what he's doing wrong and not looking at my goddamn self and what is allowing that to happen. What environment I'm creating to, allow that attitude to, exist. I have to look at myself too as a Black woman because I am his counterpart. There is no one else but me. That is half of him. And vice versa. So we begin to look at ourselves in tandem. We'll have a better understanding or a better gauge of what it is that we are dealing with. A lot of times societally, we everything we do is separate. Oh, that's a man versus woman. That's a left versus right. That's an up versus down. Everything is in a state of dichotomy. Everything is a divide. We can't operate like that. That is not our worldview. That is not the African concept. That is not our historical cultural concept. Everything works within the realm of complementarity as African people. That's just what it is. That is our worldview as African people, brothers and sisters, Black people. We deal within nature, and nature dictates the law of complementarity. There is no up without down. Up and down does not mean separate. They are the same element, just expressed differently. Black men and Black women have lost the idea of complementarity. We only deal in dichotomy. That is Europeanized worldview. That is not our worldview. Just like if you want to think about African spirituality, me, that's what I practice. I practice an African spiritual system, which is called Vodou. Okay? And you cannot look to any one of our what they would call gods, but we call Lua, which is really just the principles of nature, right? So I like Ogu. Ogu is a very important spirit to me, right? We associate Ogu in voodoo with the masculine principle, but Ogu does not exist by himself as a masculine principle. He represents justice, power, force, war, the enforcement of justice, the protection of his people and community, all of those things that we could associate with, masculine energy, right? But, we don't just leave him there in the principle of voodoo. That's not what we do. What we do is, he can't exist without his counterpart. His counterpart is Ezili. Ezili represents what? What is the best thing to balance war, power, justice, force, and all that type of energy? Love. So the concept of his counterpart is love, which we associate with the female principle, so that there is always the operative yin and yang, if you will, left and right. There is always a balance. Everything is complementarity in the African worldview. That is who you are, Black man and Black woman. You complement each other. But for centuries and thousands of years even, we have been co-opted and our culture has been usurped. And so that now, instead of operating in the modality of complementarity, we are at a constant level of war with each other, which is why we cannot function and progress as a people. Wherever we may be on the planet, is discord among us. It is because a lot of us have jettisoned our principles, our historical spiritual practices and worldviews, cosmologies. We have to understand that complementarity is life. That is nature. Nature operates in complementarity. Okay? You will never have a winter without the eventual entrance of spring and summer and fall. Everything balances each other. That is how life works. Anything outside of that is anti-life. And that's what we have been inculcated into, a practice of anti-life. That's why you see us warring with each other, killing each other, at a constant state of deficit, mental, spiritual deficit. Because we are anti-life in our practices and in our concepts. We got to understand that as Black people. It's important that we do. Like I said, this is life and death, and I'm speaking to the masculine energy first. Eventually, if I keep this going with doing lives with the Black No Sugar series, I will have one addressing the sisters, the beautiful, divine feminine. But we got to focus on our brothers first. There's a reason why I put him first. There's a reason why I'm talking to every beautiful brother in here first. All right? Now, Black women, we give birth to the future. We pass on the bloodline. We ensure the bloodline. That's a very powerful position. All right? And we hold the spiritual capacity to create both male and female beings. All right? Complementarity, that's our power as women. That's not the only power, but that's one of the most paramount that we hold, is life itself. We bring male and female beings onto the planet. And therefore, we are the controllers and enforcers of their direction, of how they are guided as male and female children. Sisters, what have we been teaching our male and female children? Because what I'm seeing is a whole bunch of goddamn misdirected youth. Okay? That's not to say that we are the only teachers, but we are the premier. Every man is half of his mother. Every man is half of his mother. I got to say it again. Every man is half of his mother. Our brothers are out of touch. We gotta redirect the course as sisters, okay? We have to do that. We have to begin understanding how to do that. to suit our needs as a collective, and to suit, of course, the family function and dynamic, which is premier over everything, so that just family functions in general can be healthy, so that we are not, no longer withholding information from our children that they are, that's absolutely crucial to their development. There is no reason why, I should have been into my 20s and 30s, and gathering information about men that I should have been taught from my mother when I was sitting on her lap. When she was braiding my hair, she should have been telling me and instructing me on concepts of divine feminine. Not the superficial kind that's just going to, fluff shit up and make you feel good. Oh, I'm a woman. I'm the queen of the goddamn universe. Yes, I am. But what is required of me because I have that title? That's what they don't tell us, beautiful sisters. That's what a lot of our elder females do not provide systems for or education in. We need to understand that. Those types of provisions are going to ensure my place is assumed as a woman properly, and all the functions that's going to be required of me as a woman. I'm going to be able to fulfill that as best I can and learn for the rest of my life as I go. But I have to be informed. I have to come in with some type of material. I can't walk into this universe empty-handed. And that's how a lot of us are operating, male and female, out here. All right. These types of things are very interesting to me. And, I find them to be absolutely imperative. Imperative is not even a big enough word that I could use, really. I don't think the English language is capable of describing, the level of, importance on this type of discussion for ourselves. But that's a tremendous power that we sisters have, but it means nothing but decay and demise of ourselves and our brothers. If we are out of sync with our brothers, we cannot be out of step with them in the way that we have been, in the way that we have been informed to be, and in a way that we thought was cute to be, because it has become popularized. Okay? Black men cannot do their part if we refuse doing ours as his sister, as his mother, as his wife, and of course, as his life counterpart. He can't do his part if we refuse ours. All right, let me take a break there and see what my people have been talking about. I know I've been going on, y'all. I get really worked up. Hold on. First, let me get to the super chats. I see we got some super chats in the building. Big stepping. Salute to Glenn Mickens. Heavy in the super chat. I definitely appreciate the support. Thank you very much. Oh my goodness, my brother, the King Stormy. Yes, the sensei himself contributed and added some love to the channel. He says, for your excellence on Sundays. Thank you so much, King Stormy. I appreciate you so much, Sensei. Oh my goodness, salute to my twin, Daryl Anderson, in the building. He says, just dropping color early for the appreciation and your upcoming birthday. Not gonna blow up your spot with the exact day. Happy birthday, goddess, aka Queen, aka twin. Thank you, King. I'm a very discreet person. Thank you so much. And of course, I wasn't gonna blow up your day either, because I don't know if you want that information out there. But let's just say, I'm very, 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 very much on the heels of my birthday, and we'll just leave it there. Hello, thank you so much, twin. Salute to Boxing Fan Times 4. Appreciate you for the support. Thank you so much for coming through. Oh my goodness, my beautiful sister Steph is in the building. Hey, Queen Stephanie. She says, a divine teaching. Thank you so much, beautiful sis Stephanie. Thank you so much for joining. I didn't even see you slide through the building. Thank you, beautiful sis, for coming through. I appreciate you, and thank you for the support of the channel. Salute to the King Joseph Townsend. I see you. Yes, indeed. Let me see what my people was talking about, you guys. I know I was kind of rambling on, but I want to scroll a little bit. Facts, okay? That damn thunder, you should have seen it out my window. It's kind of clearing up now and softening up now, but Shango was wilding out my window. I guess I was cooking on something, and he had to chime in real quick. Salute to Charles. He says, don't worry, Democrat failed, but democratic socialism will fix it. Well, I don't know about all of that, but it is what it is. The King and the Coach was feeling something that I said at a particular point, because he done said, ooh, wait. I appreciate you, Coach Hudson. I definitely appreciate you. Um, I'm just scrolling through beautiful people. I want to see what y'all was talking about. Yes, yes, King Freedom. Don't need or want no lullabies. Okay? We don't need that for our beautiful brothers or our sisters. Salute to the King Mo in the building. I see you, King Mo. Thank you so much for joining and rolling through. I appreciate. Oh my goodness, my sis. I haven't seen my sis in a little minute. Hey, Queen Emma. She says, as melanated women, we have been indoctrinated to discard our men in the name of independence. Beautiful sis, Emma. First of all, peace and love to you, my beautiful sis. Thank you so much for joining. Always wonderful to see you in the building. And absolutely could not agree more. Okay. Um, I don't understand. I don't understand the independence. You understand what I'm saying? Everything about me was made to commune. Everything about me was made to commune with nature, with the breath that I take, okay, with the food that I eat, with my family, okay, with my body, with my child, with my man. Independence from what? I don't need independence from nothing. I don't want severance from anything. I want to fully indulge in my life in all of its reverberations and expressions. Okay? I don't need independence from nothing. And our women are the ones that have been instructed, chiefly, to supplant all of their logic with this concept of independence. All right? All because, the westernized view, that was perpetuated by their women and enforced by their women, felt absolutely separated and distant from, their men, to put it nicely, right? To keep it short and frank. They felt separated from their men. And so that, they pushed this, I want to be a man. They had the dick envy, the penis envy, in other words. And so that, that's for them. That's what works for them. That's fine over there. Okay. But the sisterhood that I come from, like I said, operates within, at least historically, for African worldview. When we get back to that concept, when we get back to our own notions, the whole colonial tornado and hurricane and whirlwind that took over our lives. When we go back into history and we tap into those layers, there was no concept of those types of things. Everything was based on complementarity, even when we didn't have it all figured out. We followed nature that says, okay, let's work it out. Let's figure it out. It was not based in, these mystified, artificial, parameters. How do we best coexist to ensure the survival, of not only our, love or structure or whatever it is, but of the whole. There's a holistic responsibility to life and each other. And you just don't get that, trying to assume such a silly, deficient concept as, oh, I'm an independent woman. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of women, believe it or not, are still, taking that on. Salute to the King Vonnie in the building. He says, real rap. Okay. Salute to the King, Jay the Man. He says, definitely another mental warfare attack on Black men going on right now. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's profuse. There has always been a level of profusion, going on in that department as far as the warfare going on, particularly on you, Black man. That's why I ask you what's happening. Also, because I want to know if you know what is going on. Because many of our brothers, King Jay, are pretending to be asleep. And a lot of them are asleep. And we can't have either phenomenon going if we are to ensure, the maturation of our prosperity. We cannot always be operating at level 0. We can't continue to do that, and expect, a life of quality. And that's what I am fighting for on an individual level and on a cultural level, because I want to see us all, thrive, and materialize, our purpose, whatever it is, whatever that may be, and we don't all have to go in the same direction, but that doesn't stop me from wanting to see you go through with your purpose and live it out fully and unabashedly, and unhinged. That's what we all have the right to express that. And our people have been, absolutely severed and violated, from the reality that is owed to us. As far, we are living beings. We have a right to express that and to seek that out for ourselves. It's real talk, son. Like, we gotta be brave enough to get into these types of deep discussions, because when you realize it, you can begin to see how these facilities are operating in your day-to-day life, how you are upholding a lot of these systems on your own accord. Nobody got to tell you nothing. You can imprison yourself. We all deal with that on some level on a day-to-day basis in our private time and our quiet lives, the imprisonment of our own selves, how we subjugate our own desires, how we stifle our own progress with doubt and wanting to assume the life of people who we think we have it better than us. All levels of, this is all levels of people activity. Like I said, all levels of people activity: economics, politics, education, war, law, religion, sex, all areas of people activity that you can imagine. All of these things are operating within and instructing us to go against ourselves, to put ourselves down as Black people, particularly and specifically. Not that that people aren't being brainwashed on a mass level, because that is happening on a world level, by these so-called powers that be, right? But that there is an incessant and a specified and curated target on the backs of Black men, and hence, the Black life itself. Gotta be real about that. It's heavy, and a lot of times it's scary. You sit back and you're like, damn, well, who could have, what system could be in place, so effective and so centralized on my demise or my immobility? Who would do that? Because that is not within our nature to go ahead and go do that to that degree, right? No matter the beef we have with other people or the dislikes or whatever, we're not going to go out and create whole entire structures, on the absolute decimation of populations. This is the oppressor you are dealing with, beautiful brothers. We got to be real. You got to be real and have honest conversations. And before we can deal with him and all of those oppressive structures, we have to begin to deal with and look at the reality of ourselves. That's where the power is, because the more out of your mind you are, you ain't gonna be able to go to nobody's damn doorstep and do anything with them. You can't even deal with you. So I asked, what's happening, Black man? What's happening? And I'm asking myself that by asking you that. All right? But I want us to begin talking, system of white supremacy is no joke. And, all of its functions. I know it's been made kind of like a mystified Santa Claus concept. Oh, you think white supremacy is somebody running around in a white sheet. You know what I'm saying? No, white supremacy is the one dictating that you don't have a job, particularly the brothers and the sisters out here dealing with that on a day-to-day basis. Your level of incarceration is a symptom of white supremacy. Okay? You're being stopped by the police by going to get your damn baby from school. All of these functions that we have normalized. Oh, this is just society or American society, or, we deal with it on a level like, a lot of us, are not simps. We're not vegetables out here. We know what's going on. But for many of us, it's very, a touchy subject to really acknowledge. We think that it has to be, something ostentatious or something outlandish in order for us to deal with it or call it by its name, which is the system of white supremacist delusion, right? But that it does not have to be loud to be operating in the benefit of that system. It doesn't have to be loud for it to be true. There are a lot of expressions of it, even in the movies that you watch, especially, I should say, via the entertainment media avenues. All right? And we got to begin to be conscious of that, because a lot of subconscious information is used via the media platform and outlet. We just think it's, you're just flicking through and scrolling through your phone on Instagram. but that there are messages on your Instagram feed, on your Twitter feed, on your YouTube feed, on your movie stations, on your radio station, all of this. Okay? We got to understand that. I guess I can go into here because it takes off from what I was just saying. You know, that there is a lot against you, beautiful brothers. Okay? There's a lot against you. You know, that you know, you have to one degree or another, even yourselves begun accepting, you know, like I said, the scrolling through your feeds and all these convenient distractions that we have out here to abate and quell your passion to change things. Okay? All types of things to abate that and sedate you. You have begun to accept those distractions rather than see yourself for who and what you are. Okay? A lot of times our brothers get comfortable in a level of powerlessness because if they assume powerlessness, that means it's an automatic excuse to not act. So that we can get complacent in helplessness because then we have the excuse, well, I just can't do it. Therefore, I can't be made to do it because, you know, I don't think I can. That's an excuse that we make up for ourselves. All of us. All of us. And I want us to be able to get to, you know, to deal with that. You know, part of all the distractions and all of the, you know, things that you have assumed for yourself mentally, you know, part of it you got from your mother telling you, you know, you're no good daddy this, you're no good daddy that, right? All types of examples we can pull from. Part of it, you know, our beautiful brothers have gotten from teachers that told them, oh, you know, you shouldn't study to be no scientist. You know, why don't you just, you know, shoot for being the garbage man? You'd be surprised some of the things that people are told by their teachers in school. So the brothers got that, right? Then they're encouraged to take drugs in school. And not to mention the prison, you know, the school to prison pipeline. Okay? This is the brother. This is what the brother is dealing with before he has even matured. Before he's even reached sexual maturity. 6, 7 years old. Already being inculcated with these systems and notions of thought. This is the brothers. And like I said, of course, you get a lot of it from movies, you know, that you watch growing up. You don't know what's happening to you as a baby, but you are being programmed. Then you get older and you're getting it from your employers. You're being let go from your job, or you're having to, you know, speak softly because you don't want to be, you know, be assumed as, you know, the imposing black man. So you got to take a subservient position as far as your posture at work as black men. All types of things, because you don't want to be called the angry black man for expressing yourself or standing up for whatever. This is the brother. This is what he's got to deal with. And part of it, you know what I'm saying, no disrespect to anybody's religion up in here, is inculcated to you via your perception of God. Okay? And that's something that black people definitely have to deal with. The perception of God. Who do you see in your mind when conversations of God come up? We got to deal with that. Got to deal with that. That's a huge part of our mental subjugation and continued slavery. That is the real slavery that we have to deal with. You know, there is no area of people activity that isn't telling you, black man, that, you know, you have to bow your head down in some way, shape, or form, that you have to not look anything in the eye. Everything in society is telling you, don't look anything in the eye. Not your woman, not yourself, not your God. In fact, don't question God. That's what you are being told, beautiful brothers. Right? We got to begin to deal with this. I want to remind you that you have eyes given to you by the divine, whatever it is that you want to call it. You have eyes so that you can see, so that you can look everything in the eyes everything, so that you can see what you are doing, see what you are going through, see where you are going, and what it is that you want to materialize as far as your purpose and your justice in your life and in the lives of your women and your children. You have eyes for that reason. Don't you bow your head to nothing but your justice and the sanctity of your family and your people. I want all of our brothers to know that. Everything out here is telling you you ain't worth a goddamn. You don't have enough money. Why you talk like that? Why you walk like that? Everybody in your goddamn business, beautiful brothers. But they're in your business to ensure that you don't stand. And you have yourself been in the business of withholding your own stance and uprightness and the uprightness of your brothers and sisters. We got to evaluate how we are perpetuating these things in our lives. However mundane we may think they are not mundane. These practices and behaviors affect us. That is the root of the systemic war against our people. And all the gradations of the distractions that we can name that are out here, that have been put in place within our westernized view, that contributes to our place in society and that has supplanted our basic and fundamental engagement with one another with a foreign concept. The Black family structure has been and is constantly placed in a state of harm and trauma to one extreme or another. It is constantly held in that position through many households, Black American households. We cannot, negate that. We cannot act like it's not happening and that we are not the enforcers of a lot of these terrible patterns. And we can't be blind about the significance that it presents within our present dynamic. All right? Because of that, this has allowed for the staunch dichotomy that I was talking about, the divide within our community, with how we view ourselves in context to the world and in context to our direct community, aka the homes and the personal level and manner of relating to each other. All of our focus as a people, from the family unit all the way into the larger context of the diaspora, all of our focus as a people has to be centralized around reckoning with the reality that we are dealing with. We got to get ourselves to engage with reality. No more levels of deception and subterfuge. We cannot accept subterfuge and deceit. The male principle within our reparation as a people, the masculine principle, is paramount to our upliftment. That's why I started this by saying you are imperative to life. The Black man is imperative to life. He is life-giving as well. We cannot negate his place, as many of our, blinded, shiftless sisters out here like to believe, that it is only us. We do not create anything alone. We need our brothers at our side. And they need to know that they have a place at our side, just as we belong at theirs. Complementarity. We need to assume and adopt that language. Because as I said, anything that isn't working within the level of complementarity is against nature. All of nature works along the concept of complementarity and balance. Okay? It's necessary and vital and essential that our brothers take a look at themselves, especially within this current dynamic that we are in. This idea and mirage that we are equal and that we are modernized and that we are beyond, displays of racism or whatever the case, multiculturalism, colorblindness. No, You got to look at yourselves, particularly in this time, because of those types of illusions and distractions. Because in you looking at yourselves, beautiful brothers, you will be able to identify your needs, your aims, your pains. You'll be able to acknowledge those things, your motives, and whatever other modes of correction that are necessary within you in order that you may materialize your uprightness, whatever that may be for you on a personal level. On a personal level. But begin to engage in those conversations with yourselves, Black men. Black men are not usually encouraged to talk. They are encouraged to withhold information, to suck it up, to act like a man, whatever the hell that is. Because whatever act like a man is only means the imitation of your oppressor. And do you want to be like that? Or do you want to be the beautiful African king that you are? The warrior that you are, the supporter that you are, the father that you are, the philosopher that you are, the beautiful mind, the guiding, wise spirit that you are. You don't want to be an imitation of nothing, because the reality is that all of this world is an imitation of you, beautiful Black man. All of the world is trying to imitate you and what you have started and created with me. This is not fanciful talk. Get in touch with your history. Open that door and stop being so afraid. That's one thing we have to do as Black people. We're scared of the past because so many things in the past have haunted us. But, among the detritus and the garbage and all of these other things is fresh soil. We can't burn it all when there are resources also in the past. There are things to learn from within the pain. All right. So, I guess I'll say this and end here. I think that, the concept of maleness, the westernized view of maleness, and particularly with Black maleness, has been made synonymous with the idea of the separation of feeling and emotional intelligence. That's what maleness has been predicated upon, that he is not an emotional being, which means that he is not alive and interacting and sensitive to his environment, which is not natural, right? So that you are instructed to work without nature, without your sensitivities, without your, intelligence, really. Oh, you have to be emotionless in order to be a man. Even the language that we assume as an American culture or westernized culture, it teaches you to put nature down, natural responses down. Oh, be a man. You don't have no emotion. Don't show no emotion. Don't cry. You can run the gamut of the things that we have been brought up on as a people, right? And like I said, that is in his image. That is in the Europeanized image, because he has always historically been disconnected from nature. So that is what that's what you're going to get on that level. But that has not been the case for us. Our ancestors didn't operate on that type of logic, right? So that, we need to get in touch with that. That's why I say open the door and walk through. Get to reading some information. Get into finding out about history. Tap into these stuff. Ask questions, right? That is what life is about. Ask questions. Don't sit back and with the idea of don't question God, because that is even reverberated throughout all of your life. You need to question everything yourself. Do your reconnaissance. Open that book, open that door, and walk through. You know what I'm saying? And, as long as you are trying to seek justice and some clarity for yourself, the balance is coming, via the challenges. That's how life talks to us, via challenges. That's how we talk to life. It talks to us via experience. Okay? And we have to learn how to negotiate with our lives via, whatever it is that we are learning in our experiences. We can't be afraid of that, of our education via our experiences, no matter how painful they may be, or wonderful, or whatever the hell the case is, right? but we have to engage. We have to open the door, to our experiences. And I think a lot of us have been, told to disassociate. Like I said, maleness, Black maleness is to disassociate from those things. Don't ask the questions. Don't open the book. Don't be emotional. Don't allow yourself to get hurt. Don't give your heart to a woman. Everything. You have been instructed to be, to be dead, to be a vegetable. And this is how a lot of our brothers are out here operating with no emotional intelligence or availability to themselves, let alone to their families. And it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing severance of their heart, of their human expression and experience. Okay? And hence you get the killing phenomena. You get the abandoning of self. You get the not being responsible to and for children. You get the disassociation away from their women. Bros over hoes. And all these other things that we can pull from as crazy, deplorable examples of separation from the community and the responsibility to that community and the natural responsibility of male, the expression of Black masculinity, right? Black maleness and masculinity has been myopically relegated to sexual exploitation over the, several centuries, right? So that, there's a hyper emphasis on his virility. You can look at historical atrocities within, the systems, let's say, of chattel slavery, for example, because that is the most relevant and prevalent of our recent history as a collective people, that gave rise to this distorted, repulsive ideology that Black men are only relegated to sexual, expression. Go breed with this. He's only good for the tool between his legs. And so there's an overemphasis on the importance of the sexual expression of Black masculinity. How many bitches can I get? And so forth and so on. Men are out here thinking that slinging dick is their power. This is how men operating out here. And I'm not talking about or referencing 15, 16-year-olds. I'm talking about grown men in this equation, overwhelmingly grown men, still operating on this level of immaturity. It's insidious work. Okay? Only good for breeding and momentary pleasure, or, simply his brute force or expressions of athleticism. That's where the value is. But the value is never centralized on him understanding the concept of his divine energy, the concept of what he really brings to the table of worth and value, which is his wisdom that he imbues on his people. The wisdom that you give to your children, the guidance and direction and support that you give to your wife, the upliftment and shelter that you provide for your neighbors, for your community, the philosophy that you build and construct your civilization with. These are the things that you are, opted to put down in favor of some, pseudo, hypersexualized, image that serves no purpose other than further separation from your people. That's the only objective that it serves. Okay. I'll say this lastly. Every man on the face of the earth is expected to build and uphold his family and hence his people. Every upright man, that is, right? Via his fortitude, via expressions of his resilience, via the imparting of his wisdom and the uprightness of his character. That is a general principle of malehood and masculinity that we could say is universal, if you want to use that term, right? But I would even go further to say that that is a precedent that we have set, that you have set, beautiful brother. You are the first civilization. You built that with your hands. That's in your blood. Okay? That's in what we create together. We need to get back to that nourishment and understanding. We need to start calling, things like that forward. We need to call that forward, not false representations that have been forced on us, that we have been violated within. We don't need to call those things names. We need to call on the name of our reparation, spiritual reparation, physical reparation, mental reparation. We need to call forward, our sense of dignity, our re-education about ourselves and how we exchange with ourselves. It all starts there. It really does. We need to begin asking questions. What are the elements that we see that we have in practice right now? Let's say from the brothers within ages from 16 to 50, if you want to. What are these elements that are expressing a level of vehemence towards that level of clarity and progress and strength of the Black masculine identity? How many conversations across the board among men, among you brothers yourselves, are enforcing these types of conversations about your masculinity, about representations and expectations of your masculinity? I want Black men to start talking and not being afraid of this level of discourse. How do we begin to make this an imperative among us? How do we popularize this? You know what I mean? Why are we encouraging on a broad level, or even on a person? I say broad, meaning like across the board with people assuming this mentality, but really it isn't. The work begins on an interpersonal level, right? On the personal day-to-day level. How do we begin to engage in these types of dialogues and posing such levels of inquiry with each other into these types of things? You know what I'm saying? We talking about, Twitter posts, you know what I'm saying? Or whose man's, slept with this person, you know what I'm saying? Or what woman, you trying to, we have these levels of discourse. Where's the room and the space being created for this high level vibration and consciousness towards something of value and purpose for us spiritually, collectively, and interpersonally on an individual level? Many times this level of discourse isn't ever spoken about in the home. I can't say that I was, not in my home, but let's say within my aunts. My aunts were very, very cultured, and, I would hear this level of dialogue among them, but not with my mom. My mom was out of sync with that type of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Not all the way, but you know what I'm saying? A lot of the ways, so that I didn't hear these levels of conversations being discussed with her because she had her own personal problems that she was dealing with. You know what I mean? But, how do we begin to centralize this type of dialogue in the home is what I am asking. How do we connect with other people who are serious about this type of stuff in their own lives? I'd like to think that this could be a safe space for us to begin that, for the reason why I wanted to introduce this level of, discourse around this, because that's something that I am personally passionate about. How can we indulge more in this on a serious level, on an introspective level, and begin to, find ways to better practice that in our own lives, right? Not when it's looking cute or when things are easy, but I'm talking about like in the thick of our lives. How do we begin to, make this central and important to uphold in our lives with all of the challenges that it presents and otherwise? You know what I mean? Because, sometimes we like to do things that look cute, right? Because it sounds good, right? Put some perfume on it or whatever have you. But when we are dealing with the hard realities of our lives and the natural occurrences of our lives and the natural pressure of our lives, how do we begin to centralize, our roots, our connection to our roots and our connection to ourselves and how we exchange with ourselves as Black people, right? I know a lot of people would even find this level of conversation to be trivial. If it's not scary, then it's trivial. Oh, that's not important. But how is it trivial when the impact on our lives from us not talking about these types of things and not having these serious levels of discussion, are devastating? our communities. It's the not having these important, weighted, heavy, hard conversations that's withholding us from progress. That's why I said we have to have a level of brave, action in place, inspired courage in order to have these types of conversations, because it is not easy. And it is not, a 5-minute solution that you can get from some health book some goddamn where. But that it is in a day-to-day struggle with yourself that we can get nearer and nearer and close as possible to some type of solutions. Even if we don't find all the answers in our lifetime, at least we can find some ways to better ease the pressure off of our children, off of our nieces, off of our neighbors' kids, our cousins, or whoever that we can give the information to that's serious about it. How it could better sustain them. I see more vehemence, real talk, about boxing and other sports from people and our brothers or whoever than I do around these types of high-level discussions. It's problematic. No shade to the sports. Y'all know I'm here for boxing all day. You know what I'm saying? I like my boxing. Okay? But the same level of vehemence that you see me expressing elsewhere is where I express every goddamn where that I'm passionate about. But that a lot of people seem to have one level because it's easier. There are no demands or expectations made of them in rooting for a fighter, for example. So they can put all of their vehemence and weight there, but not in the building and reconstructing of themselves and their concepts of reality as Black people. You know what I mean? So Black people are so easily distracted, and you could run the gamut on the number of distractions that are out here in place, to keep you, like I said, sedated and withdrawn. But, we need to begin to change that. And dialogue is always powerful because that is the original prayer. It's language itself. It's to speak, right? The utterance is power. Okay? So we need to declare what that is for ourselves and begin, the journey of uncovering these truths and for our needs, on an individual and collective level that can empower us. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, let me check in with the good people. Hold on, let me turn my light on and I'll check in with the good people, see what y'all saying. I definitely appreciate y'all for, tuning in and chopping it up with me on this discourse. I didn't know what to expect having a live on this. Like I said, I usually go live about boxing, but, these things are important. These things are important, We're going to indulge in anything. We got to indulge in purpose, for ourselves. The King Patrice, I went a ways up, but I wanted to touch base on what you guys were saying earlier. King Patrice, salute to you, King. He says, females pushing males to fulfill their masculine state allows men to fulfill their protection, provider instinct, which unlocks a stable environment for femininity and females to exist. Exactly. And the sisters just, a lot of the sisters, are coming up completely without that understanding. And like I said, I was definitely one of them. I'm one of, countless women, thankfully, I came to be interested in these types of things via various experiences in my life. And now as a mature woman, it's part and parcel to my existence. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't go without my attention to these types of details, because I understand, its significance. But yeah, a lot of the sisters just, are without that understanding. You know what I mean? For the females to really understand what it is, to not only love themselves, but to be able to show and express that level of support, for our male masculine counterparts. If we could just understand that, I think, we would never see, half of the things that we see the youth out here being so deluded about as far as their behaviors and their practices. It would be washed completely out of the consciousness. You know what I'm saying? But there is a miscommunication happening on so many levels within the culture, or within what we assume as culture, right? Because a lot of things we have adopted, that just because it's a part of the culture doesn't mean that it enforces a healthy, structured culture of equipoise and balance. Just because we have assumed it doesn't mean that it is working for us, right? So yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you, King Patrice. 1000%. I think I got that earlier. Let me see. Salute to everybody once again that came in. I appreciate you very, very much. Yeah. Do you? He says, I love that Arisha. Ashe. Listen, he is no joke. Okay. All types of thunder and lightning outside of my window. The King Patrice came back. He says, our relationship between black male and female, has taken from the same devils who push that on us, who come from an agitated, destructive nature, now push us to act like that towards each other. Yeah. And that's a scary concept for a lot of people to grasp as well. They think that this is just, a lot of the, things that we express as far as our behaviors. Oh, this is just humans, right? Humans have it. You hear that all the time, that generalization. Oh, this is human nature, right? But is it? Is it? Because we can look to, past, ancient times or historical times of people outside of, the Europeanized or Westernized, what eventually came to be the Europeanized and Westernized construct. People prior to the standing of, or the creation of a European mindset or their ideologies did not act like that. There are no descriptors that suggest that they have acted like that. Whether we are talking about Africa and antiquity, whether you want to, look to Kemet, whether you want to go to Ethiopia, you know what I'm saying? Whether you want to go to, Zimbabwe, you know what I'm saying? South Africa, whether you want to go to the Yoruba, you know what I'm saying? Whether you want to go Kingdom of Dahomey, whether you want to go outside of the continent. You know what I'm saying? We want to talk about what they call ancient indigenous or Mayan civilizations. You know what I'm saying? There are no expressions of that mentality or pattern of behavior. And that's not to say that people were, walking around under rainbows all the time, that there was no, modes of discussion or anything like that. That's not to say that, but that there was no need to express, the level of devastation upon nature or each other anywhere near the capacity that we find in what ultimately became to be known as Western civilization and the mindset that formulated that. A lot of people don't want to deal with that. You know what I'm saying? But white supremacy is not, it's a new concept and the idea of race. White supremacist delusion, absolutely. It exists. And it is, the construct of it is new, and what it's serving and how it is used is new. But it stems from a long history of the ideological foundations of this particular group of people. And that's another thing that is a hard reality for or a pill for people to speak about, forthrightly. A lot of people are afraid of saying that, but there's a history that really backs that up. And we got to be honest about that too, as Black people, because that is the system under which, masses amount of our people have died. Masses of our people are being killed under up until now. So we got to deal with that reality too. It's heavy, but this is a conversation and a reality that must be accepted. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, it's very, very interesting. And yes, exactly, Al Rogan. Self-hate programming is definitely a programming. It's definitely a programming. It's a mass level of programming that has been, centuries in the making, and we can get there. There is work to be done, that can undo a lot of that, but that we have to put the effort in to do it. And the only way to put the effort in is to realize that it's happening and to demand that we don't want that existing in our lives. Do we want to walk around self-hating when you are conscious about all the ways that you are expressing self-hate, do you really want to continue that, going on when you reach that level of consciousness? The answer is no. You want to love on yourself because you are pro-life. You are not anti-life. And so you want to work in the benefit of what is going to sustain your life. How the hell does self-hating sustain your life? Everything about self-hatred is anti-life. It imposes the notion that your life has no value or worth, no business existing. So you are going to engage in practices, that cooperate with you taking yourself out, with you Xing your own name off the list. You know what I mean? And we see expressions of that all the time. The erasing of ourselves, in many ways, until ultimately, it's done on a literal level, Very deep conversations, you guys. I'm thankful that you guys were, around for this type of dialogue, because there's so many things, that we have to discuss as Black people. There's so many things on our plate, but it is worth having these types of discussions, when we are looking for justice. The principle of Ma'at in African spirituality is a principle that suggests the law of reciprocity, which is what align what I was talking about with complementarity, right? If you respect yourself, right, everything that you do in your life is going to demand that you respect others. You understand? So that's already in itself a law of reciprocity and balance and complementarity. Your respect level for yourself automatically introduces the concept that you walk with respect towards the life that you engage with, meaning the people that you engage with, the things that you do in all manners of transaction in your life, right? If you do not have that level of self-respect and awareness, that's when you get the expressions and symptoms of all types of other psychosis, right? So these conversations, the uprightness of my people, the balance of my people, and the restoration of my people, and even the new expressions, right? Because I'm not saying that we need to be clones, of a past that seems far removed from us, even though we are not far removed from them. But I'm not saying that we need to, be clones of anything, right? So that we can determine our own path, but we need to be in a clear state of mind in order to salute the history that we come from, the bloodlines that we come from, and in order to also determine new, structures and new ways of facilitating our expression as we grow as people. That's important. So, we got another super chat. Thank you to the King Nata in the building. Thank you so much for joining, King, and big thank you to the contribution to the channel. He says, salute SugarFreeMars and salute to the mighty LDBC. Big love to you, King. I appreciate you so much. So much. Oh, the King Al, what'd you say? Social experiments. It goes further than Tuskegee. How deep is the rabbit hole? What? Child, Tuskegee is just, I can't even say the tip of an iceberg. It's a crumb in an ocean. Okay? A crumb in an ocean. The levels of atrocities committed upon our people, and targeting specifically our people historically. And that's more recent history that I actually got to sit down some years ago with the last remaining survivor of the Tuskegee Airmen. I want to say maybe, oh God, how long ago was that? So it was a while ago. But yeah, it was an honor to sit with the last surviving member of one of those airmen. My beautiful sister says, I am so grateful that men are able to see and engage with women in these spaces, and that we create, yes, in these spaces that we create, where they are seen, noticed, and show appreciation for their very nature and being. Absolutely. Absolutely beautiful, sister. And that's what was an imperative for me to begin, the dialogue, addressing the brothers in salutation to their presence. I understand and completely, am aware of all the hardships that they deal with, you know what I'm saying, and all the historical baggage that, they have amassed uniquely onto them. And I definitely wanted to get into some of those modalities of practicing, against ourselves in working outside of our own interest. I wanted to get into that because it's important for us to understand and address and acknowledge. But that I needed the brothers, to have a space in which they are told, that they are imperative to life as we know it as a people. They are instrumental. They cannot be separated from the conversation of life. And their position is paramount in the sustenance and continuance of life for our people. I don't like the discourse that goes around, beautiful sis, that our brothers have no place, that they, only serve, some limited, non-descriptive purpose, some vague purpose somewhere else outside the lines and, in somebody's shadows and underneath somebody's control. Or I don't like that. I'm very fiercely protective about the brothers. Very, very much so. Very much so. I can't even explain how much, but I'm very fiercely protective of the brothers. And, they are not being instructed properly, by these major, institutions via education, what I'm saying, via law, politics, and all these other things that I named, what I'm saying? And that when they come home, they are also being misdirected and misguided, oftentimes, and that they are dealing with levels of pain that they have not opened up from other experiences that they dealt with from being in the world, or childhood experiences that they have not allowed themselves to acknowledge, so that the brothers are dealing with and operating, with so many things at one time that are unique to them. And I think it's imperative for us sisters to acknowledge the uniqueness of what they are dealing with so that we can understand that, we think we know, but we don't know everything of what it's like for that specific male existence. And his masculinity has been under attack like nobody else ever has been on this planet. And so we have to have an extra sensitivity to our brothers. That's why I use the word protect. I know it can, sound taboo. Oh, well, the men are the protectors. Yes, they are. Absolutely. Yes, they are. That is a part of their duty. But that they are also to be protected because they are also valuable. Us acting like they don't need protection is assuming that they have no value. And that is absolutely not true, because that's the antithesis to life. They must be protected and upheld as well. They must be supported and properly understood and seen in order to function properly in that masculinity. As the brother Patrice was saying earlier, and our acknowledgement of that as Black women is going to get them on a healthy road, to claiming and amassing that level of kingship for themselves, and us, because we benefit from that ultimately as well, So salute to all the beautiful brothers. I wanted to direct this live to you for that purpose. And thank you for the ones that stuck around to have the dialogue with me and listen in. I appreciate the beautiful brothers. I'm very sensitive and passionate about you. Fathers, brothers, uncles, cousins, what I'm saying? The Black male image. And it's probably because you guys have been so misrepresented to me in my personal experience that as a grown, mature woman, I have come to value you with a level of sensitivity that I was just absolutely oblivious to as a young woman and as a child, but that now in my maturity, I'm able to see you for where you are and hopefully offer some guidance and some protection and some support for your upliftment, because that is my goal. Like I said, as your counterpart, and we could do that for each other as brothers and sisters. We don't need to be married with each other in order to do that, but that the community has to have a language of fulfilling the purpose of support for our brothers, and our young boys. It's imperative because we need them. We need them to survive, So salute to all the beautiful brothers. I definitely appreciate you guys for everything that you do, for everything that you are. And I'm looking to you to find the answers. I'm looking to you to be brave enough to have this level of discourse with yourselves, with your women, with your sons and daughters, and to continue that dialogue, of finding out these answers and ways of balancing yourself and reclaiming your place alongside, the world dynamic. And of course, most importantly, in your home, because that directly, that's where the community begins, is within your home, and your place in the home is absolutely paramount. And you need to begin to reclaim your place within your home, which is within yourself. Right. So salute to the brothers and sisters. Thank you everybody for joining. I'm going to end it here. I want to keep too much, time spent here. You guys know I can go on and on and on now. All right. So hope everybody has a beautiful week ahead. Keep in touch with me throughout the week on my community page. As always, love to talk to you guys there. Drop a few thoughts and even some commentary if I get time. I'll drop some videos here and there if I can. But yeah, until next week, we will talk again. Peace and infinite blessings to my beautiful people. Big salute. Talk to you soon. Peace.